So recently, or I should say a few weeks prior, there were three major, and I say major in quotes because that's how some people view them, but A-tier tournaments for LumiRank that happened. Sumabato SP56, Gamescom LAN XCGN Open, and Grand Slum 17. And each of these events were a bit, or I should say, like, in terms of the stats community, because I don't really think the general public and Twitter really gave a shit. The stats community saw these events with a bit of a skeptical eye of why these might be considered majors. Some of them were barely A tiers, or Sumabato's case was an A+ tier with only one top 20 player in attendance. So let's kind of talk about these and talk about what really makes a major, and if things were ended up changing, why it just, the current system is what's going to end up right now being the best solution until there really is a breakthrough otherwise. So this event was an event, of course, filled with the typical upsets you see in Japan, because look at the seeds of these events. Only one top 8 seed made it to top 8. This was a wild event. You had Jagabato in one of the best runs they've ever had, getting third as a 49th seed with Duck Hunt. Yona P almost won a major through winners. I think ended up getting double eliminated by Raru and Grands. Yep, just 3-1. If Jagabato took that set versus Raru, we might have had a Pichu major winner. Inkling made his return with Shirayuki. We had, still know how to pronounce her tag correctly, Mildna HO getting, and Kuhaku getting double 5th with DK, and first Robin major top 8 ever as well, with Leaf making top 8 at their first major event. This event had some like big players. Akayukusu got third. I mean, not got third, was the third seed, got 9th, just missing top 8. What other top 8 seeds just, what happened to the top 8 seeds? Where are they? Yeah, Wame was one who was at 25th. Rocky, Navy, and Fui all bombed at 33rd. Rarix had ended up a 4th. This was a weird event where the top seeds just did not show up. I think, yeah, we had one DQ as well with level 1, which happens. But this event was absolute nonsense. And it still was a big event with only one top 20 player, which is like, sure, there was a good some from the top 30, a good amount of the top 50 were here, but only one top 20 player, which to many would be kind of weird for the sense of a major event, especially considering Sumabatos usually have at least 2 or 3. But this was still tiered pretty high with just one. And that's where it kind of gets a bit weird, because it's like, this was a high tiered event compared to the other two. It barely made the it might not make the qualification for major in some eyes for some. Can this be qualified as a major? And I think at the end of the day, a good question that we're going to kind of come back to from time to time is, if you say you got all of number 21 to 50 in a room, would you consider that a major? If you had 30 of the top 50 players, but none of them are in the top 20, in this strange ass hypothetical where for some odd reason none of them showed up, that would never happen. And if it ever does, what the fuck happened? But, and yeah, like looking at the chat, yeah, you probably would, because it's 30 of the top 50 are there. So look, when we're talking earlier about tournaments with X amount of top 50 players, like only events like Genesis or Evo or SmashCon were able to capable of having that amount of top 50 players. So can a major exist without the top 20 being there? I personally said, yeah, probably. There's a good chance you have a major winner in that 21 through 50. I do think A+ might have been too high of a tier, but Japan's also had a weird start of season where just they've been rotating in and out of who's been top 8ing events, and it's kind of just been an absolute mess in that sense as well. But it kind of also just shows their strength as a region, where some of the best players in the world are kind of compact here, and sometimes you just deal with players like Akikusu and Alice and Uwame and Rocky and Navy all not making, even though they're top 50 players, just all failing to not even make it to top 8, because that's just the region that Japan is. Publicly agreed major qualifications feel kind of vibes based. It's weird how some B+ tiers feel like a major and some A+ tiers don't. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's just kind of what happens with the publicly accepted major of it. Like, it's gonna really depend on your own public perception of what constitutes as a major. There's people who are like, there's 56 Sumabatos, why is it a major? Well, not for this one example, but if we go to, say, let's go to a different Sumabato. Yeah, when you go to prior Sumabatos, well, these are majors because look at the players who are here. Number 2 in the world, Mia. Number 11, Doramigi. Number 19, Snow. Further down, number 9, Ashimo. Number 6, Raru. Like, these events typically have some of the best players in the world. Even if it's a monthly with over 300 entrants easily most times, and usually a decent chunk enough of top 20 players. It's why these are big enough majors, and it's why Japan can sometimes feel like they just spawn majors, and it's mainly because of Sumabatos of all events, let's be honest. So, let's move on to the other Japan event. Let's talk about Grand Slum. Grand Slum barely made it over A tier. Just barely. Just barely. It had no prior major winners. The number 1 seed was Rarix. And out of the top 50, I think it was 2, 3... not many, if I recall. Yeah. 3 top 50 players. And outside of that, also like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not gonna count the ones who just topped a major. 5, I think, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Jeez, it keeps going. 11, 12. Most likely 12. 12 players prior to this event who've already top made a major before, and it has, yeah, as I said, no players who've won a major before. Should this event be considered a major? Some will say no. It's definitely the most weirdest event compared to any other. When looking at top 50 and top 100 players, and there's no top 20 in attendance, Rarix was the first seed. And some will say yes, because an A tier is an A tier, hit over 3,000 points. It has the depths of the top 100 to do so. It has players who increase their values because they've shown they are capable of topping majors. It was a very competitive event. And we had the winner of all things considered, I haven't even touched upon yet, was Solo Wolf with Masha, who was a top 50 player, but then went on hiatus and didn't really compete. It goes back to that vibes thing, where it really comes down to the public perception is going to be. Frankly, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about Grand Slum because I think a lot of people aren't aware it happened and it was a major. So we're not really seeing a lot of outroar and discourse about it. But I think it's because it's also so accepted that Japan is the best region that like something like this could happen. And because of the current rules of the TTS, things like this can happen, but if we take it away, it's not going to really harm Japan. It's going to harm the regions that need it a lot more, who already find finding that 3,000 points to host a major hard. And an event I want to kind of talk about that has struggled to cross the finish line, but did kind of feel like a major recently, this is the same weekend of these events, was Gamescom LAN XCGN Open. So Gamescom had 2 top 20 players, Spargo and Gluttony, a fair amount of the top 100. A lot of EU didn't end up in the top 50, so not really, I think, anyone in the top 50 outside of that. Mainly, but if you did like the full year ranking that we've calculated, say Raffalo and Crepe were both top 50, I believe, maybe Siski was as well, so there's others. And a majority of Europe's best were here. Some might not say this is a major. I personally think it is. I think you can't, especially with how Europe has done, just did a Cavalier Clash, and like they've also had a pretty solid showing, I believe, at Genesis. Like, they're a very legit region. I don't think you could take that, their limited opportunities, as them not being good. GSM also, they defended really well. They took down a lot of Japan's top invasion, I think, as well as some of the North America's as well. So like, they're a very capable region, and I think it'd be disingenuous to call this not a major, because it is European players, beside them showcasing they can compete with the best. Other events that were kind of disregarded were Regen and UFA. Events that had no top 20 players, and it's once again kind of like, I do believe that regions that are capable of hosting events, that are capable of hosting events of that caliber, that are showcased to repeatedly be able to either defend themselves or do well outside of region for the most part. I will say 2024 was definitely a bit of an offer year for Europe, but like 2023, Siski was almost a top 20 player rank wise. Blutini was one of the best in the world. Raffalo was top 50. There was multiple in the top 100. Their players were capable of putting up really good results across the globe, top 8ing majors. Just like now with Susu also making not just top 8 here, but also top 8 at Cavalier Clash. These players are definitely capable enough to host majors, and I feel like I'd rather be able to give regions their flowers, do deserve and showcase their talent, can push that way, rather than strip that away so we can avoid some really silly majors like Grand Slum. At least that's in my opinion. Plus, like, solo wolf major winner Masha is pretty hype. That's like a super cool thing, even if it was, or like the event was essentially like whoever wins this wins their first major, and I think that was a pretty cool thing to, like, you don't really get that. And I know that's something that might not constitute it as a real major in some eyes, but I do think it's something that is more entertaining for the scene in that sense, and it's just fun. I think at the end of the day, that's, well, not just it being fun, but like the equability for each region to host, each major region of North America, not even just North America, like regions that have showcased they have strong talent like Mexico, like Europe, to host their own majors might lead to some silliness in others that already have enough. But I think this is a better compromise than telling these regions that already struggle to hit that 3K mark of Lumi points that they can't do it. I think obviously vibe space, there's gonna be people who disagree, and at the end of the day, if Wikipedia and Smashoki don't want to call these majors, we're not gonna stop them. Like, obviously that is their own ideology, and if they feel that way, it's okay. That's just, at the end of the day, what LumiRank is going to consider a major is going to be considered a major in the official rankings. An A tier is an A tier.